Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John. Today I have another anniversary review for you. It is the 35th anniversary of Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. But before I begin, if you are new to this channel and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. So back in '86, heavy metal was kind of like this big evil entity, and many parents didn't really want their teenagers to listen to it. And they kind of thought it was like everything related with like evil and the devil and all sorts of like unholy things. But in the early '80s, it started getting some more mainstream attention. We got bands like Quiet Riot, Def Leppard, and Rat. They were getting some radio play and some airplay on MTV during the daytime. But there was never really an album that was, technically a metal album, but it was like for everybody. I mean, if you were like a pop fan, you liked it. If you were a metal fan, you liked it. Or if you just like a rock fan, you liked it. And I think the album by Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, that kind of falls into this category. It was like the first like big album that was, kind of heavy metal, but it was like accepted by everybody, and it was like a really like big, very lots of sales, a very high selling album. And this was also the album that kind of brought like female fans into heavy metal. Heavy metal was kind of like a male dominated genre, around this time. And this was the band that I think like probably like more girls liked it than like guys did. Now, I keep saying metal band. You're probably thinking, Bon Jovi, they're not a metal band, but the first two albums were fairly heavy, and this album does have some metal elements, and we'll be talking about that. But they do kind of start to move away from it like at this point. But similar to like Metallica's Black Album, they had the first two albums, then they like adapted their sound. They wanted to reach a bigger audience and create this like really big album, and they really did. Like, this is one of like the top sellers, selling slightly below like Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, a few of the Beatles albums, and Pink Floyd's The Wall. So the album was released on August 18th, 1986, released on the Mercury label, produced by Bruce Fairbairn. So they, like I said, they wanted a more radio-friendly sound. They hired a Desmond Child. He's like a really big like hit maker. He's written lots of songs. He's worked with Kiss and many other bands. And they had Bob Rock, but he was like just a mixer on this album. But they really had this like really great like all-star team of producers and mixers and engineers and all that, just to create like this really like big rock album. So the album, we know it as Slippery When Wet. The original album title was called Wanted Dead or Alive, and the band was actually planning to, dress up as cowboys and you appear on the cover of the album. Who knows what the trajectory of the album would have been if they had done that. But they chose a simple cover. They just took a wet black garbage bag and they wrote the words like slippery with wet, like with their fingers, I guess. And it was very simple, but it was just a very iconic cover. There's also another Japanese cover. I'll like put a little picture right there. They probably thought it was offensive. It would have, offended the PMRC moms at that time, and they didn't want to do that. They kind of wanted to sell themselves as a very like wholesome, family-friendly band. So the album has the classic lineup: Jon Bon Jovi on vocals, Richie Sambora on guitars, Alec John Such on bass guitar, Tico Torres on drums, and David Bryan on keyboards. The album has 10 tracks, a runtime of 43 minutes. The songs were all written by Jon Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, with Desmond Child writing a few of the bigger hits and some of the other deep cuts as well. So the album starts out with Let It Rock, and this one has a keyboard intro and reminds me a lot of Deep Purple. It's actually one of the lesser known songs. I actually like it. The keyboard intro has like a classical music style, but it's one of those songs that has that like classic glam metal style with a sing-along chorus and lots of like those like guitar acrobatics and lots of heavy power chords. The song has a style, it's almost like heavy metal, but it's also like classic rock, and it does have that arena rock sound as well. So not a bad way to open the album. Now for like come some of the big hits. So you have You Give Love a Bad Name. This was the really big song. It's one of the most popular songs. Has a pretty cool guitar riff in the intro, and this was co-written by Desmond Child. It does have that pop radio sound, and there are still elements of like metal going on here at this point. I think it did age well, and you know, it's not a song that you really like got tired of. I think it's something I would like to listen to again. Next is probably one of the biggest songs ever, Livin on a Prayer, and it's kind of interesting. Kind of reminds me of that type of song that they're like a fellow New Jersey native, Bruce Springsteen would write. You know, tells a story about two people, Tommy and Gina, and they're both hard workers trying to make ends meet, and tells the whole story about them. Has a really classic chorus. It's just one of those sing-along choruses and one of those songs that gets the crowd going when they play it live. And this is another song that has aged well. It's very catchy, has some pretty cool lead guitar parts, and it's a good song overall. Next song is one of the lesser known songs. It's a deep cut called Social Disease. It's pretty cool. There's like kind of like a metal riff in the beginning, but I think overall the song is just like okay. It's not one of the standouts and probably not one that people remember as much. Next is one of the bigger songs, Wanted Dead or Alive, and this is very iconic. They mix a little bit of that like outlaw country music in their signature style of like pop and glam metal. This is a great song. I mean, it's probably more of like a classic rock song that I would consider like a hair metal song. I know Richie Sambora plays like a 12-string acoustic guitar in the intro. I really love that sound. The song is also inspired by a Bob Seger song, Turn the Page. That's pretty interesting, and has a really great guitar solo, and I think it's a very iconic song. The next song is called Raise Your Hands, and you know, if you listen to the opening riff, like the isolated guitar riff, it's very heavy. It almost sounds like a Judas Priest type of riff. But you know, Bon Jovi, they mix in the keyboards and they do all the mixing, and then they do make it sound like a Bon Jovi song. Richie Sambora plays a lot of guitar acrobatics, and there are parts that does remind me of like Van Halen's playing. Overall, the song does have an arena rock sound, a very catchy chorus. It's memorable, the type of song that you kind of sing along to like when you do go to a concert. Next is Without Love. It's a ballad, and probably the one that like nobody remembers because there are two other ballads on here that were big hits. You have Wanted Dead or Alive and Never Say Goodbye. This one is very radio friendly, not very metal, not very rock, lots of keyboards, and it's probably one of the ones that's a little more forgettable. Next is called I'd Die For You. This one reminds me a lot of the band Journey. It has that piano keyboard intro, and it was written by Jon Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, and Desmond Child. It does have a very like radio-friendly format. And at this point, they start to move away from their metal roots, and they're going into that like arena rock sound. I think it's a decent song. It does have like some different sounds than most of the other ones. Next is Never Say Goodbye. And this is one of the most popular ballads. Now, if you're like someone who was like my age, you probably remember this song being played at like the high school dances, and it has lyrics talking about the same exact thing. You're talking about skipping school and going to the prom and dancing and wishing you would never have to say goodbye to your friends when you graduate high school. That's the overall tone to the song, and I think it's a pretty good song. It just brings back lots of memories. I think it's aged very well, and it's a song that sticks in your head, you know, when you listen to it. The last song is called Wild in the Streets. It's the only song solely written by Jon Bon Jovi. I think it's okay. Not really a great album closer in my opinion. I mean, they probably could have closed with Never Say Goodbye. It's very keyboard heavy. You don't really hear much of the metal roots in the song, and I would just say it's like an okay song. It does have some bluesy guitar parts and piano towards the end, and that's okay. But other than that, I don't think the song really like fits well on the album, but that's just what I thought. So in conclusion, like I said in the beginning, it was a very big album. They sold 28 million copies. Slightly below Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, Nirvana's Nevermind, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and Metallica's Black Album. But is this album really as good as the ones that I just mentioned? I don't think so. I think there are some very iconic songs, but as an album, you know, like as a whole, I think there are a lot of songs that are kind of filler and not very memorable. So my favorite songs are You Give Love a Bad Name, Livin on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive, Raise Your Hands, and Never Say Goodbye. The rest I could probably just skip, but that's my opinion. Let me know your opinion, and we'll talk about it in the comments section. So that's all coming tomorrow. I will be doing my ranking of the band Styx, so stick around for that. But anyway, check out the other videos. See you tomorrow in the next one.